It's time for the Workforce Show.
Welcome, Rob.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know you're very busy, and we're very glad that you could come. Want to start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into your field.
Okay. So I graduated high school in 1979, and I grew up in a household where my dad did everything, plumbing and heating and building our house, or at least renovating, major renovations to the house. And so I always had a knack for using tools. And so when I was going through high school, I was not a college-bound student and, looking for alternatives. And so in the school district that I went to, they offered a vocational high school as an alternative. I think this particular tech school probably offered maybe 12 or 15 different programs. I know they had baking, they had fashion design, they had diesel mechanics, they had auto mechanics, they had auto body, they had machine shop, welding, electricity, carpentry, masonry, and probably some other ones I don't remember. So in 11th grade, I went and went to school all year in 11th grade for machine shop. And then that summer between 11th and 12th grade, I went out on my own and got a job in a machine shop local to where I was working for the summer. And then I went back to high school my senior year and started that program again. But they also had the opportunity that if you found a job in your field, you could actually go to regular school half a day, and then instead of going to tech school, you would actually go to a job.
They have that today?
I have no idea. I really don't. So,
I don't think so.
I mean, where I was taking all this, where I took my apprenticeship was outside of Philadelphia. So it was a pretty suburban area. There's lots of businesses. And remember, this was back in 1979, 80, when I started. So maybe more opportunities in that field. I'm not really quite sure what's available there now. I would suspect that, I know that it's less now just because manufacturing, a lot of that's going overseas and you lose that train of talent, actually. So in 12th grade, I went out and I found a job through a recommendation of a friend that suggested that this one particular machine shop was pretty well known in the area and you try and get a job there. So I interviewed and I got the job working, I believe it was from like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 7 o'clock at night. And it was a paying job. So the last half of my senior year, I went to school half a day and then I went to this job for the other half a day. And then when I graduated, this company offered me a full-time job in an apprenticeship. And so in this case,
excuse me, what you were doing beforehand from high school wasn't considered an apprenticeship?
No.
Okay.
Although tech school, that's high school related. It's not after school related. But I was fortunate because I was working at this particular company. When I graduated high school, they ended up crediting me all those hours that I had put in towards my 4,000-hour apprenticeship. So that was nice. And so an apprenticeship would normally take about 4 years to do the 4,000 hours. I think I did mine just under three years. And part of that was because we would typically work 60 to 70 hours a week. So you're accumulating hours pretty quickly at that point. And so when you do an apprenticeship, part of that apprenticeship is you're required to go to night school. So on top of working that many hours, on those school nights, you'd actually get out of work at maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock, and you'd drive to. I drove to Green Spring, not Green Spring, Garden State College outside of Philadelphia. In my experience with my apprenticeship, it was structured in the fact that I guess there was probably 6 or 8 apprentices working in that shop, and there was probably about 120 toolmakers in the company that I work for. And every approximately 6 months, you would switch locations in the business. So, like we had, there's different types of machines you would need to get qualified on to run and get the experience to run and become a toolmaker. And so you had milling machines, you had lathes, you had a grinding department, you had what's called jig grinders. They had what's called EDM machines, which are electrical discharge machines, which actually erode metal. There were various different kind of machines, and every machine shop will be different. If you were serving an apprenticeship in a manufacturing company that made automobiles, you would be training on some of the same machines, but the scale of work would be different than maybe what I'm doing. The parts that we manufactured and the things that we did were very precision. We did a lot of work for IBM, and they were making we were making machines that made the chips that went into computers, or we made parts for computers. And a lot of that ends up being very high tolerance because it's all about size, getting things smaller. And so there were times that we would work in temperature-controlled rooms because the tolerances were so tight that most people wouldn't know, but metal expands and contracts just like anything else does. You can't see it, but it does. Mm-hmm. And so progressively for those 4 years or those 4,000 hours, you would jump around and you would work for different groups in that machine shop. And so a lot of the groups were broken up into, like they would have like team leaders, and a team leader might have 6 or 8 guys, toolmakers underneath them, and they were given a certain project. So by jumping around and working in different groups, you got to work with different toolmakers. You got to work with different machines. Over time, you might decide that, okay, you're a toolmaker, but you really like maybe grinding department and working in close tolerances. Or you might like to work in the EDM department, which was a process about eroding metal to close tolerances. It just depends. The other positive thing with this whole thing is that as an apprentice going through your apprenticeship, every so many hours, there are pay increases too. As you gain more knowledge, you get more pay. So at the end, I'm going to guess that probably at the end of the apprenticeship back in 1981, you were probably making about $13 an hour, which was good money at that point. Good money. I think the last year I worked there, I think I made almost $30,000 as a 23-year-old in 1983, which was, again, good money at that time. I have no idea what they run now. So when I finished my apprenticeship, as we were chatting earlier, I ended up learning how to sail on the weekends when I had time off.
That's a nice byproduct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there was another guy there that sailed, and he taught me how to sail in small boats we're talking about. So I bought a small sailboat. I learned how to sail, and that was the beginning of the pathway that got me down here where I live now in Kent County. Uh-huh. And so what I did is I went to work for a small mom and pop sailboat company outside of Philadelphia.
And you're no longer a tool and die maker. You left that.
I left tool and die because I had my papers. I decided I was young enough. I wasn't married. I can always go back to this if I want to, but I wanted to try something different. Tool and die making was inherently a lot of hours of work. I mean, like I said before, our typical work week was about 60 hours. So you're working 10 and 12 hours a day for somebody else. And as a young person, I kind of got tired of doing that. And I wanted to try something different. So I went to work for the sailboat company, and I worked there for a couple of years. They were bought out by another sailboat company. And ultimately, I was in the process of getting married, and my wife wasn't happy with her job in Philadelphia, so we ended up moving down here into Kent County. Our thought being that we like the area; it's more rural, and there's more boats down here, real boats. So I ended up transferring those skills that I had in metalworking to commissioning new sailboats. So a dealer would sell a boat. That boat would come in from the manufacturer, and then there were certain things that would have to be put together on that sailboat. I took those skills. I ended up going back to school to.
You went back to school?
I went back to school to Y Mills, Chesapeake College, just for a couple semesters, and I learned air conditioning, refrigeration. And I specifically took those skills and applied that to boat works. So air conditioning systems on heating systems on boats. Then I became a dealer for systems and started my own business.
How does tool and die making apply to the work that you did into boat?
Well, I think it's a work ethic for one. It's a problem solving. I think tool and die making, there's a lot of problem solving. And for me, I think I'm pretty good at that. And I took those tool skills, certainly it's a different set. I'm not using machine on a boat, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was wondering what machine.
But I'm taking those skills, I think, are transferable in the fact that it teaches you precision, whether you're cutting wood or metal. It's the same thing.
In your experience, like today, as of today, looking back, do you see other people being trained as work apprenticeships in a different area, and some of those have failed? Why have they failed?
I honestly don't have or know any young people that are in an apprenticeship. I think what's become recognized recently is that, yes, these skills are being lost. And I think what's happened in the year 2024, 25, and maybe 10 years prior is that the powers that be have recognized there is a void with skilled help. And I think one of the things they're introducing out there are what's called maker spaces. And maker spaces are around the country. There could be in a city. I visited one at Penn State in Pennsylvania.
And there was one here coming.
And there's one here coming, hopefully. And they can vary. But the idea is that you're transferring skills to younger people and opening up, giving you a place to work and learn skills, essentially. So I think that's sort of the stopgap next thing coming down the line. I mean, we didn't have maker spaces when I was, back there, but now it's changed. And I think it's morphing more into that kind of a training program. I don't know where it's going to go. I mean, I'm curious about the one that's going to happen in Chestertown. I wish him the best of luck, and hopefully, I've been to all the meetings. I know sort of what's going on there, and I would like to at some point be part of that because I think I have skills I can pass on.
You do have skills.
But, it has to happen first, and so we'll see. Well, I think a makerspace would help determine that. If you can get kids interested early on in not having to go to college, that's a good alternative. It's certainly was the ticket for me because I was not smart
College
enough to go
bound.
college
Yeah, you
bound. I
say
mean,
that.
I wasn't.
You weren't motivated.
I
That was-
wasn't. I mean, and my parents at that point were not pushing me to do that. So I think you need opportunities, but at the same time, you need jobs. You need those opportunities. Well, where can I get more education in doing that? And I think those opportunities are just less because of where we are.
Well, I've noticed that the younger person might be a little bit older today, but they don't want to go to college, and they go to college and they drop out. Looking for something to do.
Yeah.
And is an apprenticeship a way of getting more skills in an area that they're interested in?
I think that's where they need to pursue. I just think that, I mean, I think a lot of it started with companies. I mean, they wanted employees that were trained to do whatever. I mean, I've heard that there's two huge opportunities in this country right now. One are welders, and the other are electric linemen that work on the power lines.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Jobs that I don't-
but in both cases, you would serve an apprenticeship
Right.
to learn those skills, and they're high-paying jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're hard-working jobs, but they're out there and they're available. And I've heard numbers of like this country is like short of 60,000 welders.
Now we're going to jump a little
Okay.
bit to what you're doing now.
Okay.
Because that's how I met you,
Okay.
and very impressed by what you do. And can you explain to anybody who's listening what you do, and then maybe how you use your tool and die making skills?
Yeah. So I ran a yacht service for several years, installing components and things on boats. And all along, my wife and I were collecting artwork and attending shows around the country and learning about other craftspeople, people who use their hands, essentially. And so at one point in my boating career, I decided that I thought I had the skills that I could make a product, make a art piece of some sort. And so I put a nest egg of money together, and I had in the process of running my yacht service, I built a workshop, and I put myself in a position that I could jump off into the art world and not have to worry about making any money for a while. And so it was an experiment that my wife supported the idea.
It's always good to have a
Good to
supportive
have a second
wife.
set of income for sure.
Right.
And what I did is initially my wife and I collected pottery. And one reason is because I like vessel shapes. And I decided that I wanted to make metal vessels of some sort. So I came up with the technique of making these very open-shaped vessels. So I started making these vessels and started applying to art shows around the country. And usually they would be like 2-day shows somewhere in some city, and you would drive to that city. You would set up for 2 days, and you'd try and sell your artwork. And that was pretty common back. I mean, the art, that kind of arts movement started back in like the late 50s and progressed. But it was a way to make a living. And so I did that for, I guess, like 13 years or so. I guess up to COVID, pretty much. I was on the road doing shows, making art in my shop. And my art progressed. I ended up doing wall hangings and sculpture pieces and learning about different materials. I taught myself how to weld. Now I had welding way back in 11th or 10th grade.
Right.
And I drew from those skills, but I'm basically self-taught in the welding world. Now I could, if I wanted to do more welding, I could go to Chesapeake College and get certified as a welder. I mean, there is a path to do that. I chose not to do that just because for the type of work I'm doing, it's not really justified doing that. It wouldn't be worth my time at this point in my life. That doesn't mean anything to me. But if you were younger and you'd want to get a welding job, you'd want to be certified. So that would be something. That would be a path you could choose to do.
When you choose a field like tool and die or welding, you have to see beyond. You have to have a path in mind when you join.
I don't think so. I mean, I think life is building skills. Whether it's talking or a hand skill or welding. And I think for me, it's just been an accumulation of different skills and building a confidence that you can solve a problem and do something specific. And so, and I think that builds confidence too. I mean, I think that's part of what I like doing now. I mean, I'm 63, almost 64 years old, and I like a challenge, and I don't shrug away from a challenge at this point because I've done so many different things that's kind of fun for me. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I like doing.
Do you see there are a lot of back to the students that you see graduating? Why is it that so many of these students seem lost and don't have a career path in mind?
Well, I guess it would be exposure, for one. I mean, in their upbringing, what were they exposed to? I mean, I know I was exposed to my father working and doing we didn't have a lot of money, so he had the skills. He learned the skills to fix all the stuff on the house. We didn't hire a plumber. We didn't hire a heating and air conditioning guy to come in and do it. My dad did all that work. So I was exposed to those skills, and that is not that common anymore. Yeah. So you don't develop that curiosity of how do I fix that, Do you think too many younger people are being directed to college, four-year college right away out of high school? Well, I mean, I think that's been the trend. I think, what we're talking about today, and I think it's starting to come around that people are, second guessing all that. The cost alone is incredible. I mean, when I was going back to my apprenticeship, when I finished my apprenticeship in 1983, I was making almost $30,000 a year. I didn't have any debt,
which is like $60,000 today.
Well, who knows? I mean, I know the one friend of mine, he was making over $100,000. So
really?
My point being is that the game has changed, and
it'd be nice to hear how people.
But like for my apprenticeship, because I was making money in the process, I wasn't in debt. If you go to college in 4 years, you'd come out and you'd be in debt for however much it cost.
It took me 5 years to pay off mine.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to know. All I wanted to be is a princess. There was no training for.
Well, I think that an apprenticeship is just a start to a career. It gives you. It's like college. It's giving you a set of skills, and those skills, in a lot of cases, are transferable to other jobs. I happen to take an art path, but somebody else might have started a small business and became a cabinet maker, or some other trade.
Like me, I'm starting a small business, and I should have been an apprentice.
Well, I don't. Again, they're just life skills. I think it's one way to get skills.
Yeah, but you made a good point there. There are a lot of people who are graduating or to be graduating, or who have graduated, who don't have a basic rooting in life skills,
right? And
they're foundering, and they can't find it.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that's upbringing.
And that is,
and again, I think. I can't stress enough. When I served my apprenticeship, you're dealing with other people. You're learning skills. You're learning how to deal with people. You're being to work on time. You're working 10 or 12 hours a day or 8 hours a day. It's creating a pathway.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you with everything you've said, good and bad. Have you ever come across somebody who was in an apprenticeship program and wasn't right for one?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I've known a couple of guys that have gotten out of the trade. I mean, I got out of the trade too, but I finished my time and worked in the field.
Like a prison. I finished my time.
A prison sentence, right?
All right. I thank you. This has been very, very interesting, and I hope you'll do it again.
Yep. I hope
soon.
it helps somebody. That's all I can say.
I'm sure it does. It helped me, and I think it will help a lot of people to make a decision. It doesn't make the decision is one that you like. It's the one that they like, and they have to have a goal, and they have to have focus, and they have to have a commitment to getting there. And I certainly can agree with that because I had a long time getting my focus, and so I thank you again.
Well, thanks,
Joe.
Cindy and Ben, for doing the audio.